relation to either substance or behaviour. My addictive substance, alcohol. My behaviour could be as addictive: work, relationships, materialism, collecting. Trying to fill a gap, I guess, inside me. Trying to fit in, trying to be included. Trying to be whatever I thought you thought I ought to be, and whatever society thought I ought to be as well, which was to be a go-getter, self-sufficient, do it on my own, run on self-will, and all those good things that I thought were right for me. And along the way, what helped me most? Well, alcohol, take the edge off, feel convivial, in fact feel things, and let go in some strange way. And the strange way of letting go was to actually use something to make me feel better. And it bit me back after many years through to dependency and then addiction. And what's the difference between an ordinary drinker, a dependent drinker, and an addictive drinker? Well, I guess the answer is only the person knows who's gone through it, because if you're just a normal drinker, you don't experience it and you don't need to, and it's very hard to understand how can someone become dependent on something outside themselves to make them feel better, and how is it to be addicted where we cannot stop doing something which is killing us and also making life possible. That's the conundrum, and that's the one we face on a daily basis if we want to stay in recovery, is to give up that which we think is going to fix us and start letting life happen as it is in the real moment of now. So for me it's been a long journey, if you like, to stop fixing and start living. And that might sound a bit bleak. Stop fixing, start living. Well, the truth is that's me. I need to live in order to understand life and who I am, just simply on a daily basis. So I don't believe for a moment any moment has been wasted along the way, because it took every last drink to make me realise exactly what I am, an alcoholic, and I'm now in recovery, one day at a time. That is the gift. And I went to a meeting last night, not my usual one, out in the country, in a place where I've never been before, and it was a very cold night and a very clear sky, and seeing the stars as they are without the backlight of London was amazing, and I could see constellations I hadn't seen for years, and it reminded me of childhood and what it was like back then, before drinking. And it's good to be able to recollect those things these days, and it's even better to be alive to recollect them. So what are my videos here to do? Well, an introduction to AA maybe, that's Alcoholics Anonymous, the fellowship which keeps me on track on a daily basis, or just a reminder and a refresher for me mainly, and to share experience, strength and hope of what is going on. So when I say I went out of London to a meeting, it was a 6-hour round trip in the end, to speak at a meeting for 25 minutes, and the best part of course is always listening to what other people say and share back, and it was really good. People finding how to be extraordinary in ordinary living, just being themselves. So what is AA and how does it help me? Here is the statement of intent, said at every meeting I go to, which is why I share it here. Alcoholics Anonymous is a fellowship of men and women who share their experience, strength and hope with each other, that they may solve their common problem and help others to recover from alcoholism. The only requirement for membership is a desire to stop drinking. There are no dues or fees for AA membership. We are self-supporting through our own contributions. AA is not allied with any sect, denomination, politics, organisation or institution. It does not wish to engage in any controversy, neither endorses nor opposes any causes. Our primary purpose is to stay sober and to help other alcoholics to achieve sobriety, which is why I do these videos. And it's about keeping life in the day, understanding our feelings, our emotional makeup, our physical well-being, and this spiritual angle that people talk about. And I talked about that a lot last night. For me, spiritual is simply the ability to cope with what's happening now and see the truth of now as it really is. Not my version, not what I wish it to be, not what I thought it was or should be, but just as it is, so I can live and be a part of. and be included and understand how to be able to function and be a part of family, community and society. So sounds like big things, but they're not. They're just normal things that normal people do. And the distortion for an addict is everything's out of shape. Our feelings are suppressed or way out of control. We haven't got a spiritual drop in us, maybe, or maybe we have. That spiritual connection, even though it might be the most horrible experience, it's still a spiritual connection. And when people talk about spiritual, is it to the happiness of life? Well, if we're lucky, we get 50-50, 50% good, 50% bad, or we get extremes, 10% absolutely monumental and wonderful, and 10% absolutely horrible and bad, and then we've got 80% in the middle, which is just average, but extraordinary living, because we're in the moment. So spiritual for me is not about being higher or better or improved. It's about absolutely knowing what is going on around me, the good of life and the bad of life. And that's what I've learned in recovery. It's to live the day as it is and make the choices as we go and respond to life rather than react to in a fearful, driven manner. So I use daily reflections here, this book, to illustrate what goes on in the program of AA. And January is all about the first step, if you like, in this particular book, which reads as the 12 steps of AA. We admitted we were powerless over alcohol, that our lives had become unmanageable. And there are two statements there: powerless over alcohol, and when we drink, life is unmanageable. And to actually get to a place of understanding powerless over taking the next drink, the horror of admitting that is true, and then accepting it. That's two parts: admit, accept. I admitted it in the end, but acceptance meant that I needed to work out how to keep sober on a daily basis. So acceptance is ongoing. We don't get over the steps, we live them. We live this program, live it in principle and action. So when it says here for January 5th, total acceptance, this is what it says: he cannot picture life without alcohol. Someday he will be unable to imagine life either with alcohol or without it. Then he will know loneliness such as few do. He will be at the jumping off place. He will wish for the end. And that was me. I wish for the end rather than to live. Only an alcoholic can understand the exact meaning of a statement like this one. The double standard that held me captive as an active alcoholic also filled me with a terror and confusion. If I don't get a drink, I'm going to die, competed with, if I continue drinking, it's going to kill me. Both compulsive thoughts pushed me ever closer to the bottom. That bottom produced a total acceptance of my alcoholism, with no reservations whatsoever, and one that was absolutely essential for my recovery. It was a dilemma unlike anything I'd ever faced, but as I found out later on, a necessary one if I was to succeed in this program. And total acceptance of my alcoholism means I don't mind being reminded of it, either by me or by other people, because it tells me and informs me I need to be careful of what I do next. Right action, right practice, right principles in all that I am doing, to live open and honest and willing as life affords. So for me, as I say at the end of these videos, it is a spiritual program, and for some it is religious as well, and I wouldn't ever knock a person's belief, whether they're agnostic, atheist or a believer in God. It's as we choose to understand life and what experience of life has taught us, whether we're agnostic, a believer or an atheist. And sometimes we change our minds because life can do that to us. So the Serenity Prayer to God or good conscience, as you choose, and is authentic to you. God, grant me the serenity to accept the things I cannot change, courage to change the things I can, and the wisdom to know the difference is always, for me, just for today. My videos are all about recovery from addiction to substance or behaviour. My substance, alcohol, my behaviour during that time. I guess trying to be, as any human can be, at the best that I could be. And a tendency towards perfectionism, and it's the ism at the word of perfect, which is probably the undoing of me more than anything. because I thought I had to be perfect and I had to strive at it all the time, at work, at life, at love, any of those things which we hold dear inside as valued by ourselves and by those we are around. So in my early upbringing, striving to be happy was part of maybe striving to be able to do the things that anybody else could do and do it as best I could. The difficulty is when it comes to addiction to a substance like alcohol, once we're dependent, addiction is only a breath away. And the same is true maybe for workaholism or any other ism that we can think of. And then the devil is that once we've found ourselves in this trap, how do we get out of it? How do we get out of addiction? And simply, I don't know that we do get out of it, because that character trait or that change in personality, change in chemical balances inside us, means that to go back to the substance once we've stopped means we start right back on the addiction again. And we are forever trying to control whatever it is that we are addicted to. So total abstinence sounds like, feels like, looks like what it is. We just don't have to do it anymore. And once we get it firmly in our own heads, that we just don't have to do this anymore to make life work. To be happy, we don't need to do it to be happy. That is a breakthrough. And it sounds like a very simple and obvious choice, but if you're in an addiction, it could be to food or, I don't know, any sort of the elemental behaviour that we all have, the drives that nature gave us, and sex is one of those, as is drinking, and the two go together. And obviously when people talk about sex, drugs and rock and roll, why do they talk about sex, drugs and rock and roll? They are primary motivators in our lives, and they offer some sort of happiness, and often when we go to excess and we can't step back from that abyss, then it all goes to ruin. So, people talk about live hard, die young. Well, I didn't die young. I sort of survived those years of, I didn't do drugs. That's not my story. Well, although for me alcohol was my drug of choice. So, I can dupe myself to an extent, but I used alcohol, like a lot of people do, to take the edge off, and then it just completely took the edge off me in my reality. So, what is my message about? Well, it's about recovery, simply one day at a time. And the gift is, I'm in a fellowship which helps me do that, and that's the Fellowship of Alcoholics Anonymous. And I'm just getting hold of a whole load of bits of leaflets and pamphlets I got stuck in here. And, here we are. Yeah, this little piece of card, which has the Alcoholics Anonymous preamble on it. It's what I do on a daily basis. I go to meetings as often as I can. And if I go to a meeting of AA, Alcoholics Anonymous, one day at a time, it's less time than I ever spent drinking on a daily basis. So, the cure, or the curative on a daily basis, is I don't drink and I go to a meeting. And what do I learn at meetings? Well, I hear experience, strength and hope. So, here's the preamble of AA, and this is me slowing myself down into the moment of now. I need to take a slurp of coffee, I'm a bit thirsty. Also means my blood sugars are too high. I have other conditions to contend with as well as just being in recovery. Okay, AA. Alcoholics Anonymous is a fellowship of men and women who share their experience, strength and hope with each other, that they may solve their common problem and help others to recover from alcoholism. The only requirement for membership is a desire to stop drinking. There are no dues or fees for AA membership. We are self-supporting through our own contributions. AA is not allied with any sect, denomination, politics, organisation or institution. Does not wish to engage in any controversy, neither endorses nor opposes any causes. Our primary purpose is to stay sober and help other alcoholics to achieve sobriety. But the important thing to notice in that is, AA is not allied to anything, but any human who is unique and authentic is allied with something, maybe a sect, maybe a denomination, may have a political idea or two, can be part of an organisation or institution, and does engage in controversy and endorses and supports causes, probably. So I support the cause of the good of good conscience often. So we stay unique and authentic, and we have this one desire which keeps the fellowship going, a desire not to drink on a daily basis. And we go on a daily basis to get the experience, strength and hope and wisdom from people. And sometimes when we can't get to meetings, we use books like this. daily reflections, and he has one for each day of the year. So January the 5th, and this is very pertinent, total acceptance. He cannot picture life without alcohol. Someday he will be unable to imagine life either with alcohol or without it. Then he will know loneliness such as few do. He will be at the jumping off place. He will wish for an end. That comes from AA's Big Book, page 152. Only an alcoholic can understand the exact meaning of a statement like this one. The double standard that held me captive as an active alcoholic also filled me with terror and confusion. If I don't get a drink, I'm going to die. Competed with, if I continue drinking, it's going to kill me. Both compulsive thoughts pushed me ever closer to the bottom. That bottom produced a total acceptance of my alcoholism, with no reservations whatsoever, and one that was absolutely essential for my recovery. It was a dilemma unlike anything I'd ever faced, but as I found out later on, a necessary one if I was to succeed in this program. So the total acceptance of powerlessness, that once you're in the addiction and caught in it, you can't stop, and it feels like I'm going to die. And if, on the other hand, no, it's true, on the other hand, if I keep on drinking, it will kill me. And that's where I was, rock bottom, and I hit rock bottom more than once, with different things and different situations and different people. And I was talking to somebody on the phone last night, and they are exactly there, in that place of rock bottom. And it's horrible, because we're defiant, stubborn, we want our willpower back. We want our will back so we can say we are self-willed and willful, and have the willpower to stop. And the absolute truth of addiction is self-will, self-obsession and willpower will fail, simply because we are human. We are human. It's our nature to make mistakes, and we need to learn by them. So people have a difficulty sometimes facing up to the ism. Is it a disease? Is it a mental health condition? Is it something which is going to kill me? If I do stop, it feels like I'm going to die, and if I do carry on, it will kill me. And that dilemma is about willpower, and often willpower will keep us out drinking longer than need be, because we are still very determined, stubborn people, because that's what we were brought up to be. Stand on our own 2 feet, put on a brave face, and make it work, no matter what. And we push our feelings down when that happens, and we don't understand how to deal with life. We just keep on drinking to oblivion, and I don't want to do that anymore. And the person I was talking to last night doesn't want to do that anymore. But stubbornness, self-will, this strong determination to the British stiff upper lip really fucks us up. And sorry for my language, but that's just the way it is. In this other book, As Bill Sees It, and it talks about prayer meditation, and prayer meditation is a good way of just singling out our thoughts and making them channeled, so we get a better idea of a structure of what is emphatically right for us, and what is exactly right for everybody around us as well, which is often not drinking at all. And it says here, the results of prayer. As the doubter tries the process of prayer, he should begin to add up the results. If he persists, he will almost surely find more serenity, more tolerance, less fear and less anger. He will acquire a quiet courage, the kind that isn't tension-ridden. He can look at failure and success for what they really are. Problems and calamity will begin to mean his instruction instead of his destruction. He will feel freer and saner. The idea that he may have been hypnotizing himself by autosuggestion will become laughable. His sense of purpose and direction will increase. His anxieties will commence to fade. His physical health will be likely to improve. Wonderful and unaccountable things will start to happen. Twisted relations in his family and on the outside will be improved surprisingly as we work to the good of good conscience. More later.